We don't people please because we're nice. We do it because we just don't know what we actually want. And if that's you, it's not your fault. We live in a generation that has more options available than any other that's been before us. You open Instagram and there's endless profiles and options and versions of the good life that you can strive for. Somewhere in all that noise, many of us never learned how to actually choose. I mean, sometimes it's hard just to decide what you're going to have for dinner because there are so many amazing options on the menu. Now, add to that the weight of this decision could shape the trajectory of the rest of my life. It's no wonder we have a hard time deciding what we actually want. So we default to keeping everyone else happy because not disappointing others at least feels like we're doing something right. Here's the kicker. The price of never disappointing others is that eventually you end up disappointing yourself. You reach a point where you realize this is not what I wanted. And if I'm truly honest with myself, it's my fault because I just never figure out what I actually do want. So how do you figure out what you want? Well, I actually already gave you the first step. The first key to figuring out what you want is to pay attention to what you don't want. I'll show you what I mean. What's one thing that you know isn't right for you? Even if you don't know what would replace it, just think about what's one thing that's like you just know it's not what you want out of life. I'll give you 5 seconds, otherwise pause the video. Let's say you hate your job. What don't you like about it? Maybe it's the pay, the hours, or maybe the pay is good and the hours are fine, but it just drains the life out of you. What you want sits on the opposite of what you don't want. If the long hours are what you hate, then it's probably because deep down you know that time is infinitely more valuable than money. And there's a lot of other things you would rather do with your time than working it away just so you can pay your bills. So in this example, you now know that freedom of time is what you actually want. But what do you want to do with that time? And that's where step 2 comes in. Step 2 is simply allowing yourself to dream again. What if that thing you've always wanted to do is actually possible? Because the truth is, someone out there is living your dream life. You're probably following them on Instagram. And every time you see their post, you think, I wish I could do that. But here's the thing, if they can, why not you? I remember listening to Brendon Burchard, and he's the author of High Performance Habit and widely recognized as one of the, or probably the #1 high performance coach in the world. So he's worked with a lot of successful people. And he said most successful people had no idea what they were doing when they started out. I heard that and thought, well, then I'm in good company. You see, you don't need the whole path figured out, but you do need clarity on what you actually want in life. Otherwise, you'll just remain stuck trying to keep up with other people's agendas. But dreaming about what you want is still the easy part. The real test comes next. The truth is, you can have anything you want as long as you're willing to pay any price for it. So what would you be willing to sacrifice to get what you want? In the case of the long hours, will they get you to your goal? Maybe they will, but you have to be sure if it's worth it. Personally, my wife and I have this goal of being really present once we decide to have kids, which means right now we're willing to work hard and put long hours in order to make sure we build a life where we don't have to sell our time for money. I don't think we're fully aware of all the costs involved, but one thing is clear, there are certain sacrifices that are simply a no-brainer for us. Being present with our kids is always going to come first. Answering that question for your goal can feel like the finish line, but as I mentioned, there are 2 questions that need to be asked. The other truth is that there are other things that are simply not worth sacrificing, and you need to name those 2. So what would you simply not be willing to sacrifice in order to reach your dreams? My wife and I want to raise our kids with values that align with the Bible. That means that anything that requires us to sacrifice on the values that we want to instill on them is simply not something we will even consider. Proverbs 13 verse 11 says, wealth gained by dishonesty will be diminished, but he who gathers by labor will increase. So we simply refuse to pursue the life we want in a way that dishonors God and what the Bible declares is right and true. Naming what you won't sacrifice is not a limit. It's actually greater clarity on what you really want. How you set those limits are up to you, but it's important that you set them so that you don't end up making sacrifices that you regret later on. Answering these questions is ultimately how you stop people-pleasing, because you start realizing 2 specific things. Number 1 is saying no to things that don't bring you closer to what you want is a sacrifice that you're willing to make. Number 2 is you are simply no longer willing to say yes to anything that will not get you closer to what you want. So Flip the things you don't want to get a picture of what you do want. Then let your imagination run wild on what that might look and feel like. Figure out what you'd be willing to sacrifice, but also what you would not be willing to sacrifice. Then, next time life's menu is handed to you, you'll know exactly what to order without even having to look at it. This will empower you with the boundaries you need to stop people-pleasing and become the person that lives your dream.